Yes, we are live. Welcome to the 6th of November, 2023, you guys, in the aftermath of the Montreal Canadiens season, now 11 games deep. And here they are sitting with 12 points and pretty much the same point total as a bunch of teams I never thought, honestly, they would be that competitive with. And doing so with the project of carrying three goaltenders on their current NHL roster, and Cayden Primeau. If he doesn't play tomorrow when the Montreal Canadiens welcome in visiting Tampa Bay, it's going to be 2 weeks since the last time you've seen Cayden Primeau, as Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault have been going back and forth for Martin St. Louis' team. That, again, is defying some expectations in the early blushes of this NHL season, better than I thought. And in all honesty, talking with some friends about the Canadiens' record after 9 games, after 10 games, after they lose all the road games that they played on last week, losing in Vegas, losing in Arizona, and then ultimately losing 6-3 to St. Louis, and what might be the worst game we've seen the Canadiens play in 11 games. And yet the positivity still kind of remains, but yet questions around the Montreal Canadiens nevertheless haven't gone away, in particular when it comes to the lightning rod that is 19-year-old first overall draft pick Juraj Slafkovsky, who got off the schneid on Saturday night, scoring his first goal as he was put on the number one line of Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. And let's remember, let's go back to when Slafkovsky was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, and I believe he was interviewed on TSN shortly after the Montreal Canadiens made the announcement that they were going with the big Slovakian and not Shane Wright. And the fact that Slafkovsky was asked, I believe, by James Duthie about whether or not he feels he's NHL ready, and he answered something along the lines of, I think Suzuki and Caulfield might need a big body on their wing. Well, here I am. And there he was on Saturday night playing, I think, his best game of the season to date. And look, his numbers haven't been good at all, full stop. I mean, his line, whether he was with Kirby Dach before he got hurt, and clearly with Alex Newhook in a short little sample size, that hadn't been working, not even close. I think we can also determine at this point that Alex Newhook is probably better on the wing than he is down the middle. But again, early days yet, trying to figure things out. And for Juraj Slafkovsky, figuring out going to the net, using that big-bodied presence, using those soft hands that everyone keeps telling us he has, and you saw it on Saturday night. So he gets his first goal in his 11th game. And for the moment, Juraj Slafkovsky is still an NHL body for Martin St. Louis on a very busy week for the Montreal Canadiens. It's a busy November. Things got off to a rocky start, losing all 3 games on the road and not looking so sharp, especially after Monday's loss last week, where the Canadiens were competitive against one of the best teams in hockey in the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Knights, losing that game, and Martin St. Louis shortly after calling it the best game he's been a part of from start to finish. Since he uttered those words to TVA Sports on Monday night, the Montreal Canadiens have been a shell of their former selves, losing in regulation to Arizona on Thursday night 3-2, where Arizona played and lost the night before. Montreal was waiting. Remember, they went to the Arizona Diamondbacks World Series game. They had a couple of days to chill and relax and get used to that dry desert heat, and then ultimately lose in regulation to the Arizona Coyotes and follow that up with a 6-3 loss in St. Louis against a Blues team that is, if St. Louis is going to have success in the NHL this season, they're going to do so based on their hard work, their defensive abilities. Like, every time the St. Louis Blues play a hockey game, you should probably lean towards the under. That's just how they're structured. It's how they play. They're kind of a middling team, certainly in the Western Conference. And the Montreal Canadiens showed a lot of ugly, bad habits, a lot of careless giveaways. I definitely believe a few guys are probably playing hurt. Hello, Mike Matheson. Good morning, especially considering the assistant captain's great month of October. And then he gets hurt in that New Jersey game after he scores that Bobby Orr-inspired type goal. And Mike Matheson has been kind of a giveaway machine. His minutes have decreased. No doubt in my mind, speculating here, I don't know anything for certain, but I believe Mike Matheson is probably be playing through injury. But despite the negativity and the three-game losing streak, they picked up 1 out of a possible 6 points on the road. The Canadiens are back home. They're going to play 3 of their next 4 in front of their fans, starting tomorrow against Tampa Bay. They've got the Boston Bruins visiting the Bell Center on Saturday. Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks are here on Sunday. Canadiens will play in Detroit on Thursday. So there you go. It's kind of a busy week ahead. A sample of 14 games the Canadiens are going to play in November. And, hit me up in the comments with what you've seen from the Montreal Canadiens. How optimistic are you about the future, and how optimistic are you about the rebuild and the path the Canadians are on? Because I am not filled to the brim with negativity, despite the fact that Montreal showed some ugly bad habits in St. Louis on Saturday night. And I think I have these positive vibes around Martin St. Louis and his team, primarily because my expectations are still kind of low. I don't know where you were at when the season began and what you thought the Canadians were going to look like. How competitive did you think they were going to be out of the gates in the early goings, whether or not they were going to be competitive in your eyes, and what projects the Montreal Canadiens were going to unveil and experiment in real time with us. And here they are with 11 games and 12 points. They're scoring goals. Their power play looks a little bit better. I mean, heck, Brendan Gallagher scored. Brendan Gallagher scored on the power play. Juraj Slafkovsky scored. So there are a lot of small little things that are starting to pop up. Goaltending remains an issue. Jake Allen, Sam Montembeault, they're going to have to find some sort of consistency and some sort of answer there. I don't know what they're doing with Caden Primo, and there are some examples of this new front office of Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes and company that are making mistakes that you and I did not like that previous regimes had made. And here they are again circling back, whether you think Juraj Slafkovsky should be in Laval or not, whether or not you think the Canadians should have moved one of their goaltenders, whether you think they're mishandling Caden Primo. It's hard to agree that they're handling Caden Primo correctly at this point. Look, they're in the NHL. I've never even sniffed the National Hockey League. The closest I ever got to the show was playing NHL Sports, NHL Hockey by EA Sports on Sega Genesis way back in the day. But it's hard for me to sit here and tell you that, I have no problem with the way they're handling Caden Primo. They did it years ago when he was a member of the Black Aces under a previous regime. And now if he doesn't start tomorrow against visiting Tampa, that's 2 weeks between starts. Sam Montembeault, Jake Allen continue to move back and forth. I mean, we're talking about a guy approaching his mid-20s, worried about whether or not he's going to be scooped up on waivers. I mean, heck, they're not even playing the guy. So kind of interesting tactics, and I don't know the logic or the rationale behind those decisions, but he's definitely going to play this week. Canadians play back-to-back Saturday and Sunday, and we'll see what happens when it comes to the Canadians' first line that showed much better improvement with Juraj Slafkovsky there, as he just could not gel with Alex Newhook, who again looks better on the wing than he does down the middle. But when it comes to the rebuild and the path that they're on, my expectations were low going into the season. My expectations are low currently, despite the fact that, yes, they were fun and exciting and are still fun and exciting. And when I look back on it, I try to stay tempered. I never thought in October, when they were playing 2 games a week and 4 games over the first 2 weeks of their season, that the narrative around Montreal completely changed. Let's see what it's like on the road. Let's see what it's back-to-back. Let's see when there's a larger sample size to work with and teams start to figure out some of the Montreal Canadiens' tendencies, like some already have with Josh Anderson, who, by the way, I mean, if we talk about slumps, I mean, what's worse than a slump? Playing next to Josh Anderson is probably the answer. RDS threw this graphic up on the weekend about expected goals for line mates of Josh Anderson, what their expected goals are at 5-on-5 per 60 minutes, even strength, 5-on-5, even strength per 60 minutes when you're with Josh Anderson and you're without Josh Anderson. And to basically quickly summarize here, whether you're Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, Alex Newhook, Juraj Slafkovsky, Tanner Pearson, it doesn't matter. Your basic number doubles. Your expected goals rate doubles when Josh Anderson is no longer a member of your line. And this one has to sting, because I'll remind you if you need reminding. Martin St. Louis made Josh Anderson last season a bit of a pet project. And he wanted the goal to be Anderson being less predictable and more diverse in his shot selection, in his ability to break open a play, to drive a line, to gain entry into zone, with something more than just north-south. Because when Josh Anderson's north-south game isn't clicking, forget about it. Forget about it. There's no inspiration. Line mates aren't inspired by Josh Anderson. Line mates can't pick up Josh Anderson. And when Anderson's north-south game disappears, his ability to generate offense goes right with it into a black hole. And Martin St. Louis tried, is trying, I would imagine is still under the process of trying to make Anderson, who no doubt is bigger than is faster than you would think a man of that size would be. And he is fast, and he can play sometimes a power forward game. But it's undeniable 11 games into this season that expected goals for Anderson line mates more than double when he leaves their line. And now you're left with what? Shrug emojis? Wondering what's to come. And I understand, everybody's streaky. Look at Nick Suzuki in the early blushes of the season. He wasn't doing anything remotely close to being a dangerous offensive player. Fast forward, starting to score goals, get a little bit more confidence, and the first line is rounding into form, as you saw on Saturday night. And then Juraj Slafkovsky finally gets his first goal coming on Saturday. What's going to happen? It should be a very interesting week. And now Josh Anderson is the next man up. Brendan Gallagher sitting on 4 goals. Tanner Pearson looks all right. So things are happening. Justin Barron has had a little bit of a coming out party in the first 6 weeks of an NHL season. Looks like this guy's offensive skills are starting to grow in confidence. And by the way, while I'm talking about offensive-minded defensemen, how about Lane Hudson scoring a hat trick on the weekend? Man, I can't wait for this guy to get to the show. But when it comes to Josh Anderson, there aren't a lot of options left. And whether or not they handle him like they did with Juraj Slafkovsky, Juraj Slafkovsky was playing well with Kirby Dach. Dach goes out on Saturday night. He gets run into the Blackhawks bench by Jared Tenorti. His season is over. And apparently Dach has been reaching out to Slafkovsky after every game, texting back and forth about what he did do well and what he didn't do well and how to get better at those areas, right? So I like that part. But they tried. They tried to make Alex Newhook into a center. Maybe that's why Colorado was a little willing to give up on a guy like Alex Newhook, considering how stacked they are up front. But for me, Newhook is a much better winger than he is a center. And when we saw Juraj Slafkovsky get put up onto the number 1 line, because you watched it, I watched it, there was nothing that Slafkovsky had done that said, stand up, I've earned the promotion to the number 1 line. For me, it reeks of, well, we're kind of out of options, and let's try this kid on the number 1 line. And obviously, if it doesn't work, then we're going to send him to Laval, and we'll revisit this topic somewhere down the line. And it worked. He got more minutes. He seemed a little bit more dangerous. I think he's a great skater, and you saw those soft hands from in close when he scored that goal. So there was something to build off of. Now that's the key. Can he and his line mates build off that performance on Saturday night? To be seen. Starting tomorrow against Tampa Bay, in Detroit, back home against the Boston on Saturday, and then Sunday night against visiting Vancouver. So it should be fascinating to see. And so when it comes to Josh Anderson, what's the equivalent that they did with Juraj Slafkovsky? Josh Anderson is the top 6 player. He's getting top 6 minutes, getting gobs of minutes on the power play. I mean, there's nowhere else for Josh Anderson to go, which leads me to if mulligans and takebacks existed in life, man, would it be incredible to be a fly on the wall and know what the offers were from other teams, because lots of people will tell you that other teams were in hot pursuit of Josh Anderson leading up to the trade deadline last spring. And Ken Hughes said, thanks, but no thanks, we're good. We're going to move forward with Josh Anderson. And I'm not saying they're ready to pull the chute on the guy, but boy, would I love to know what other general managers were throwing at the feet of Ken Hughes, trying to pry Anderson away. So it's going to be a fascinating little week for a lot of different reasons, including the goaltender assignments. I would go with Caden Primo against the Tampa Bay Lightning tomorrow night. Tampa is in Toronto tonight to tangle with the Leafs, where the Leafs are home as home favorites. Toronto has lost 4 in a row. The Lightning put the boots to the Ottawa Senators on Saturday, in which fans were chanting for DJ Smith to be fired. Brady Tkachuk came to the media after that Saturday night loss to the Lightning, talking about how much it hurt to hear the fans boo and all that negative energy, yada, yada, yada. So, makes sense for me. Caden Primo would be my guy on Tuesday against Tampa, who are in Toronto to face the Leafs tonight. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Welcome back to In the Car with Star. My apologies for taking so long to get this going, but there were a few things I had to deal with, had to navigate through. But it's a pleasure to be back here. For those new to this, you can always subscribe, find us on Apple Podcast or YouTube, Facebook. Just search for In the Car with Star, and you'll find us there. Free content coming your way a couple of times a week. I'm going to try to do this at least twice and keep it within the 10 to 20 minute kind of range. I look at this more like as someone that has a dog and likes to take his dog out for walks. Short little ditties, nothing that's going to preoccupy or gobble up too much time unnecessarily. And so if you're new to In the Car with Star, first of all, thank you and welcome. And, I'm part of the TSN 690 morning show weekdays with Connor McKenna, 6 to 10 on TSN 690 AM on your radio dial. And where we talk sports 20 hours a week, 4 hours a day. And this is just another outlet for me with an opportunity to talk about things I'm very passionate about. Clearly, the Montreal Canadiens. I also love to eat. I also love to play golf and talk about golf. And so these are some of the things I hope to be able to bring to you a couple of times a week. Lots of takes on the Montreal Canadiens, speculation, gossip, the occasional food review. I'll try to get some guests in here as well. And it's all free, like no charge, no commitment to anybody. And so, yeah, we're going to have some fun all season long. So make sure you follow along. Invite your friends. In the Car with Star coming at you right here. Facebook, on YouTube. Find us on Apple Podcasts. Download, like, and share. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you later this week.